Hey traders, Cousin Benny coming to you on August the 17th, Sunday, from theclosingprint.com with a look at the sectors, some particular stocks that we're looking at, as well as a watch list that we will post on our blog later tonight. Looking at a chart of the NASDAQ composite, we have a sideways range that we are testing the upper levels. Given the strength in the semis and biotech, I'll be very curious to see what happens tomorrow. Volume was right at the average at 1,800,000,000 shares, so that was looking pretty good. And we have a MACD cross. So the way I use MACD and stochastic is that I watch stochastics to embed and for MACD to give a cross and signal whether or not that embedding can occur and sustain a move higher. So like we see here back in February, we were embedding already and MACD crossed and we had this continuation move higher. So I am watching the comp with respect to stochastic and MACD. I always use stochastic and MACD together in my charts. Looking at the put-call ratio, this is the cumulative, which includes both the index options, which institutions favor, as well as the equity options, which the street typically favors. We can see that we have moved outside of the upper Bollinger Band. We pointed out last week. We had a little dip and then a move back higher. Typically this signals a continuation or when on the first blip, a move higher. This the gray area here is the S&P 500. So we're moving higher. I'm expecting to see this indicator turn back down and for S&P to continue to move higher. Now that's all contingent upon news, of course, so keep that in mind as well. This is a chart of unleaded gasoline. We pointed out back in July that we were anticipating what would happen once we met this trend line. Of course, we broke down, then we had this level to deal with. We broke down again, and this is using the 10 and the 30, which is what I use to trade what's called a box setup. And every time we try to trade back into this trend, we're met with resistance and continue to trade short on a chart such as the unleaded gasoline chart. We don't have a position in this, I'm just pointing out the scenario. Now what we would need to get bullish on gasoline is for this 10 period to turn back up, to cross over and to break trend. We don't see that yet. So gasoline looks like it could see more weakness going into the weeks ahead. We do note that we saw a little push higher on Friday, but that's our current read on gasoline. The gold end of day spot price, GOLD, continues to move sideways. We have yet to break above this level here. So even though we have positions in Barrick Gold and Harmony, we continue to see those stocks outperforming the metal itself. The Dow Industrials came down to a support level, which we indicated here, as well as its rising 200 period moving average and a longer term trend line connecting the lows that go back into 2013. We did see a bounce. We're currently closed right around the 20 period moving average, the midline of the Bollinger Bands, of course, and we are above this Kirby level. So we could see a continuation move higher, again contingent upon the caveat of Euro news regarding Russia and Ukraine. This is a chart of the mid-cap S&P new highs, lows percent. You can see that when we dip below here, we have a sell signal, and when we dip back up and get above this level here at 3.5 to 4%, that's a buy signal. So we can see that we have continued to move higher on this high-low percent histogram. So that's one of the other things that I'm watching in addition to small caps and the S&P 500. New York Stock Exchange Composite Index. Down below I have the New York high-low. You can read what this is later by pausing it and then read through it. But basically we're looking for this move to continue, we have a Kirby level up here at the 618, taking these highs and this low for our Fibonacci. And we're watching what happens here at the 50% and the 618 with this 50-period moving average right in this area as well as this Kirby level and the 618 on Fibonacci. Remember, the composite is composed of 1,867 stocks. The last time I looked, anywhere from 1,867 to 2,000 stocks, which gives a broad measure of the market. One of our indicators that we continue to utilize is the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange Summation Index. Basically, when you see a crossover to the downside, that's bearish. As you can see here, down below is the S&P 500. And when you see a crossover to the upside, utilizing the 5-period moving average, we see a bottom and a turn, which typically will last for some time and can see a continuation move higher. So if this continues to perform well and doesn't turn back down, we could see this triple top area as a likely target on the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange. The Russell 2000 small cap daily chart, higher lows that we pointed out last week. We saw a break of trend on RSI. We're right at 50, and we have a likely target here of the 50-period moving average and the upper Bollinger Band, with the 200-period pretty much flat. So you trade the upper and lower Bollinger Bands. You had a signal outside of the lower Bollinger Band, and you bought this 3-candle reversal to the upside, and that signal has worked out pretty good thus far. MACD is crossing, signaling that the stochastics again could stay up here in the plus 70, plus 80 range. So keep an eye on that on the Russell 2000. Here's the small cap, or excuse me, here is the S&P 500 new highs. Note we had a multiple down histogram. We have yet to push back above this level here. I'd expected to see that considering all the other indicators we've mentioned previously, that we could see a push higher like we saw here with a commensurate move on the S&P 500. The daily elder impulse, many people use the weekly, but I just want to point out that we went from red to blue and now we've gone to green, and we're right here at the 50-period moving average after coming down to the 618 and this trend line. So the trend is up, 200 period is up, and we look like we could push higher barring any Russia-Ukraine news this week. Note the up-down volume. We had our major distribution day a couple of weeks ago at the end of July. We have yet to see a major accumulation day to the upside, a MAD above 90% like we saw back here. We saw 2 spikes back in February, which marked the bottom, and then we saw this level here, which came pretty close to a 90% day back in March. Just something to watch. S&P weekly CCI signal. We saw this level here turn right at 0, which we've seen before, so this is looking pretty strong going into the week on the weekly S&P. Now here's the bond stock ratio. We drew this trend line horizontal, this horizontal line rather. We broke trend. We were looking for this to break to the upside, to be bearish. In fact, we turned down, and now the bullish trend is resuming. I would like to see this move back down and break down below this trend line, the dashed line that we see here on the bond stock ratio, the ratio between the UST and the SPX. And here's the S&P 1500 high-low, similar to the other two that I just mentioned. We have our signal to the upside, so that's why I'm looking at the NYSE as well as the S&P 1500 moving higher going into this week. Tick, I've been posting that during the day. TNX, the 10-year yield, continues to show weakness, came down and tested this lower trend line. And note that MACD and stochastics both have turned down as well as RSI. Here's a 30-year bond yield. Note that we broke down below this trend line of lower lows, and Bollinger Bands are expanding top and bottom, which means the momentum is gaining strength to the downside. The event risk indicator, this is the daily. I typically like to use the weekly, which is this one here. We want this to get back down below 90% to signal a continuation move to the upside. The Arca Institutional Index, I like to look at this one during the week. This is a measure of institutions, core holdings, the top 75 stocks that these guys hold. And you watch the buying and selling of these stocks. You can see very well-known names and the percentages, weightings of stocks. You want to watch this indicator. We're getting embedded here on Stochastics MACD. Looks like it's moving to the upside. RSI is flattening out for the most part, but looks like it could turn back up during the week. Note the red candle that we saw, but we did close above the 20 period and the 50 period on the XII Arca Institutional Index last week. The AGG Bond Fund, this is what we use to measure our performance on our VBTIX, which is the bond fund that we're in. The trend is up. We're above this Kirby level. Note all the buy-in that was here when we broke out. Note the volume here on the daily as well. MACD cross, stochastics moving higher. DBV carry trade, this is a reflection of the carry trade. And basically, higher is bullish for equities, lower is bearish for equities. You can see what happened as we broke down 2 weeks ago, and then we bounced when the carry trade also bounced. The high yield corporate, we watched this as well as junk bonds. We were anticipating that we were going to test this level here and then move back down. Came down to the 200 period bounce and continued to move higher, completely negating this pattern and breaking to the upside. So risk is on when you consider the high yield corporate bond fund as well as junk bonds. Here's IEF as we mentioned previously. Builders, junk bonds, same thing with the high yield as well as junk bonds. You can see the volume here, RSI, huge move to the upside. So as long as this continues to move higher, we did see a doji on Friday. As long as this doesn't turn back down, this is another indicator that's pushing us to the bullish camp, continuation going into the week. And here's your Kumo. We pushed right through Kumo. We lost it here 3 weeks ago, and this is what we're looking at. We lost that. That gave us all the signal that we should be completely out of any longs, and we anticipated that correctly, moved down to the 200 period, bounced back, have a TK cross here, ticking Kijun, and now we're testing the upper span A on the Kumo, and we see a Kumo twist in the near term, which is another confirmation that we could see a move higher. Note Chiku here, this line pushing back above price. That's all bullish for junk bonds and also bullish for the S&P. McClellan Oscillator, Eukarowitz, and a lot of people mention the oversold signal, which gave us the all clear to move into the S&P 500 and long funds. Statistically speaking, when we move down to these levels, typically 20 days later, the averages are higher. We posted that chart and graphic that Eukarowitz had posted as well. And we in fact got exactly what we're looking for. We're up here at 35. We could push back up going into the week and see something like we saw here back in February. So look for that kind of continuation going into the week. TLT, again, same thing as AGG as well as the IEF 7-10-year bond. The 20s continue to move higher as we see TNX and TYX, the 10-year and 30-year yields continue to break down as we pointed out previously. Okay, so let's look at our sectors. Candle glance chart. This is all of the sectors that we follow. What we gather out of most of this is the BKX is still weak. It's down below its 20 and 50. The biotechs are outperforming, so that's something that we want to continue to see going into the week. If this XBI continues to move higher, we have a bullish cross here on the 1030. Box trade, we continue to move higher. So we trade to the upside when the blue line is above the red, and that's what we're continuing to see. RSI is moving higher. MACD and stochastics both signal that we could see further upside. Note XHB, the materials sector, real estate, double top here. Watching what happens here going into the week if you're trading real estate shares. Stochastics embedded, remember MACD can signal that we could see further upside, and this could continue to embed like we saw back in this area here when prices continue to move higher. So that's real estate shares. Semis continue to outperform as well. We broke a little falling channel here. We had a bullish cross back in May. Again, with MACD crossing, we saw this embedding action here. With MACD continuing to move higher, which foretold that we could see embedding here until we saw MACD turn down, which we did not get. So we anticipated that we could see continuation move higher. We're watching this now as well for embedding when MACD is crossing to the upside, going positive, and we saw really nice volume going into the week. So we'll be looking at the semis for stocks to trade going into the week. Steel, don't have to explain that. You know what happened to U.S. Steel, AKS, STLD, and Nucor. We pointed that out last week as well on our high-tight flag scans as well as the Bollinger Band scans where we saw a lot of those steel stocks showing up. XLE, way oversold. Looks like we could see a turn in the near future, so this might be something that we'll be trading in the coming weeks. I note that Carter Worth was talking about this on CNBC on Friday evening. Not that I give it a lot of weight, it's just that he was pointing it out when I looked at the chart. I saw what he was looking at as well. XLF, not interested. XLI, same thing. XLK, the technology continues to move higher. MACD cross, stochastics could embed just like we mentioned previously. So we'll be looking in that sector as well for some trades. XLP, back above its 20 and 50. Looking pretty good, and a MACD cross. XLU, not that interested. Healthcare, we're approaching this triple top area. MACD cross could embed. So keep an eye on the healthcare shares. And XLY, we could see a continuation move. We had a little bit of action on Friday. That was one of the sectors that didn't look as good. But when you look at semis, how it turned out on Friday versus XLF, you can see XLF and some of the other names. You can see XLY. This was a nice green candle. We had buyers come back and push this candle much higher. And although we didn't take out the high, we did push higher nonetheless. And it looks like we could see a crossover to the upside on semis. So we'll be focusing a lot on semis this week. Looking at our candle glance for the top 25 movers and shakers, we like to watch this in a candle glance. The stocks that a lot of traders are trading on a daily basis, AKRX and the diagnostics and healthcare sectors group. This one continues to look good. We had a little bit of a poor action on Thursday, but Friday continued to push higher. AMBA looking good. Another semi. We had a down day on Friday. We had this breakout of this nice cup and handle pattern. Had difficulty at this Kirby, which we said we might see. So let's see what happens on AMBA going into the week. We watched this one following our trade on HIMX, another specialty semiconductor, and also in the business in plasma as well as monitors, diagnostic software, and other products. Note the flag that we saw here. If you look at Kumo, you can see that we had this nice action above the Kumo and flagging out. We had a Kumo twist, broke out of this nice base pattern, and it looks like Chiku is above price action but stuck in Kumo. So we're waiting to see how that plays out during the week. And also GoGo, you know what they do. Looking pretty good. Higher lows here. We have this descending trend line here. So we have a triangle pattern trying to break to the upside. We'll see how GoGo plays out during the week. EPAM, FANG, another energy name like we mentioned previously. If you extend this trend line and also this Kirby level, previous breakout level, we're starting to see a turn. Stochastics is turning and MACD is turning as well as RSI. So this could be a continuation move on FANG going into the week. Airline stocks, we mentioned those. Looking decent on some of them, not all. Double top on SAVE, keep an eye on that one. NOAA, looking pretty good. Had this nice cup pattern, this kind of weird handle, but we're seeing buying action as we're getting back above this Kirby level. Could be a continuation going into the week. Netflix looking decent. We have this level here that we're breaking back. We get back above 475.87. This one could go. There is no resistive volume per se once we get above this level and get back up to 52-week highs. So keep that in mind as well. VJet as well as Triple D, the 3D printers, not looking that great just yet. We'll keep an eye on that. VIPS is looking okay. XU, Pharmatech, that one had a really nice day. Thursday and Friday continues to move higher. I would expect to see a flag here. We're sitting right above the 200 period moving average. We have this Kirby level to deal with. Watch for a flag, some dissipation in some of this momentum, and then a continuation move higher. A lot of these Chinese names have been doing quite well over the last couple of weeks. And Zillow, of course, had this nice move, then a move back down, held at the 50 period moving average. We're seeing stochastics recycle moving higher, and MACD looks like it's turning up. Watch the volume here. Could be an early indication, early Monday, before the opening range that we might see further upside action on that name. Beta, of course, we know what happened with a lot of internet stocks. This one just continued to move higher after earnings. It just continues to move higher. NTAP, NetApp, that one continues to move higher post earnings, as well as a lot of internet stocks and also networking shares. So keep an eye on those sectors. And again, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com. Keep an eye on all these names. We'll post some individual chart list scans to trade on our blog, so check that out going into later tonight, going into Monday's trading. Okay, take care. If you're a new trader, remember to check out these videos down here on how to assist yourself on becoming a better trader. Take care. We'll talk to you tomorrow.